So thou, O son of man, I have set thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore thou shalt hear the word of my mouth, and warn them from me.
Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them.
Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Middle Tennessee and examining current events from a biblical perspective, this is Bible News Radio with your hosts, Randall and Stacy Harp.
Hello, people. So I want to welcome you all to this edition of Bible News Radio. Hope that you're having a good day. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm having a hard time hearing my mic. How's that? Is that better?
I think the music could be turned down a little bit.
All right. How is that?
That's good.
Okay. So hey, everybody, thanks for coming in. Whatever platform you're viewing us on, whether it's Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, or iTunes, or our Spreaker page, I want to say thank you for tuning in to this episode of Bible News Radio. If you don't know who I am, I'm your sweet and lovable host. Yeah, I am. Stacy Lynn Harp. Anyway, I want to welcome you guys to the show. And today what we're going to do is we're going to remember Holocaust Remembrance Day. Before you leave and go, I don't want to talk about this subject, it's too depressing, I think it's important that we talk about it because the world of anti-Semitism is on the rise. And, you know, I have to tell you, a couple of weeks ago, I was listening to a message from one of my favorite Bible teachers, Messianic Rabbi Greg Hirschberg, who was on our show last week. He was the guy that actually told me first that I'm Jewish. Yeah, I am. And I have to tell you that now that I know this stuff makes it even more personal to me personally. And anyway, during one of his speeches, or one of his messages that he was given to his congregation, he actually mentioned this book. It's called Thy Brother's Blood, The Roots of Christian Anti-Semitism. And I'm going to read you the back of it in just a second, a couple of minutes. But this is by Malcolm Hay. It was originally written in the 50s, I think. This one is actually updated from 1975. And if you go to Israel and you go to the Holocaust Museum, actually that's in Israel, which I've been there one time, then there's like a whole wing that talks about the Christian anti-Semitism. Because see, and if you don't know history, then you're bound to repeat it, right? And the sad part is that this is an unfortunate part of history, big time. And, you know, some people that people hold in high regard, if they knew the anti-Semites that they were, they would go, oh, like Luther, Martin Luther. A lot of people just celebrated the 500th anniversary of Luther and the nailing the theses on the wall because he was, you know, trying to go, oh, yes, you know, breaking away from the Catholic Church and trying to understand stuff. But the problem is you have unbiblical theology, also known as Reformed theology or replacement theology, that completely dismisses Israel and everything. But it's even worse than that. Like, I don't know if it can be any worse than that, actually. But the problem is we don't know our history. And if you ever wonder why there's conflict between the Christians and the Jews in the past, then you need to understand history. So let me read you the back of this. It says here, written by a Catholic historian with access to previously untapped ecclesiastical archives and historical records, this book shows how over a period of 1900 years, the church made it a policy to denigrate the Jews and keep them in a state of persecution. The references are unassailable, the writing clear, the message not to be ignored. Originally issued by Beacon Press in 1950 under the title The Foot of Pride, this book was given the silent treatment by church leaders and by and large by the media. Not uncommon today either. The The timeliness of the reissue at this juncture of Malcolm Hayes' masterwork is grounded in the fact that public opinion largely views quite dispassionately the threatened destruction of Israel, the major refuge of the Jewish dispossessed. Such callousness can only be attributed to a tacit unconcern for the lives of Jews. To the writing of a new foreword of this important work, Claire Hutchett Bishop brings many credentials. She describes herself as a French Catholic who cannot understand, from a Christian point of view, crusades, inquisitions, passion plays, programs, and the Holocaust. And so this one was published by Hart Publishing Company in New York City. It's called Thy Brother's Blood, The Roots of Christian Anti-Semitism. So, you know, this is heavy stuff. In fact, let me see here. There's actually, I'll tell you what the year of this one is. The year, this one is copyrighted 1975. Yeah. So this actually was written, it was actually copyrighted 1950. The Foot of Pride was the original name. And then there was a preface to the paperback edition entitled Europe and the Jews, copyright 1960. And then Thy Brother's Blood, which is this one. Okay, so this is Christian history of persecution of the Jews. Anyway, and then I actually started reading it because it's really interesting to read a book before so much liberal bias was able to creep in, you know. But of course, the liberals and the media didn't want to touch this book either. I was also this morning, and some of my pillars of the community know this, I was on a webinar this morning with Israel 365, who have just published a brand new Bible called the Israel Bible. And what this is, it's a Bible that took over 10 years to put together. The Jewish rabbi that worked on it was on this webinar that I sat in on from Israel, and he was talking about how it was interesting that really nobody had put together a Bible specifically focusing on Israel. And so what makes this particular Bible special is that it's just the Old Testament, because it was produced by a non-believing Jewish person. He's a rabbi, but he doesn't believe Yeshua is his Messiah. But they partner with some other, they would refer to them as Christian Zionist ministries. So the Jews and Christians in Israel, and there were some other people on there, including a relative of Oscar Schindler, Rosemary Garlow. You guys know Jim Garlow from, I forgot what the name of his church was in California, but Jim Garlow's wife, Rosemary, is actually related to Oscar Schindler from Schindler's List. And she's a believing Jew, a Messianic Jew. So it's interesting. I'm going to get her on the show. We're going to talk about this. But anyway, during the webinar that I sat in on, one of the presenters mentioned the book called The Murderous History of Bible Translation. And I think the last name was Friedman, the rabbi. I think it was the rabbi who mentioned the book, talking about how throughout history, people who have translated the Bible have misrepresented it. And in particular, he was talking about Jeremiah. I'm trying to see here. I took a lot of notes. I am going to be able to get the replay of that, fortunately. Jeremiah 31:31. And then, of course, they like to forget about the fact that the scriptures were given to us by the Jews. Our Messiah is Jewish. And even the unbelieving Jews who don't yet believe Yeshua is their Messiah are waiting for a Jewish Messiah. So either way, you know, the God of the world is Jewish, and all that. So anyway, it was a very interesting thing, because when you have anti-Semitism in the church, replacement theology, basically saying that all the promises to Israel are null and void, then your theology is all off, right? Because there's over 700 times, and this is what one of the comments was during the webinar this morning I read, that God says that he is going to fulfill the covenant that he made to the Jews. 700 times, over 700 times in the Old Testament alone. God promises that he's going to fulfill the covenants to the Jews. So it's kind of like, I don't know, you have to be really intentional on ignoring all that if you actually believe that. Anyway, I will be getting, if you want to go to theisraelbible.com, you can actually go to that website. You can look at it. It's a 2,000-page Bible of just the Old Testament, and each reference to Israel is mentioned, and then there's historical notes. In fact, one of the questions that I asked one of the presenters was if they actually had mentioned the Holocaust, the history of the Holocaust, and they said, yeah, specifically when you look at Jeremiah's book of Lamentations, which, how many of you have read Lamentations lately? Most people probably haven't. But, the Jews have always been displaced and persecuted throughout all time. So now today, what I find really interesting is looking at Twitter and looking at some of the news that I found this morning. If you get my email, I put three articles in there that I want to cover today. But the first thing I want to do is say hi to everybody. I don't know if you're watching. I have to go over to Facebook and see if anybody's there so I can say hi to you if you are. But all of you on Periscope, I want to say thank you for coming in. And if you're one of my YouTube viewers, one of the three of you that watch on YouTube right now, hi. Nice to see you. And to all you guys on Spreaker and iTunes that watch after the fact, thank you for doing that too. I appreciate it. Okay, so President Donald Trump, he did put out a proclamation, and I'm going to read it to you. I think Randall has it too. I gave it to him.
Yes.
It's titled, President Donald J. Trump proclaims April 12th through April 19th, 2018 as the days of remembrance of victims of the Holocaust. On Yom HaShoah, did I say it right?
Yom HaShoah.
Okay, or Holocaust Remembrance Day. And during this week of remembrance, we reflect on one of the darkest periods in the history of the world and honor the victims of Nazi persecution. This year marks the 75th anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, when the imprisoned Polish Jews mounted a courageous and extraordinary act of armed resistance against their Nazi guards. The Holocaust, known in Hebrew as Shoah, was the culmination of the Nazi regime's final solution to the Jewish question, an attempt to eradicate the Jewish population in Europe. Although spearheaded by one individual, this undertaking could not have happened without the participation of many others who recruited, persuaded, and coerced in their efforts to incite the worst of human nature and carry out the ugliest of depravity. The abject brutality of the Nazi regime, coupled with the failure of Western leaders to confront the Nazis early on, created an environment that encouraged and inflamed anti-Semitic sentiment and drove people to engage in depraved, dehumanizing conduct. By the end, the Nazis and their conspirators had murdered 6 million men, women, and children simply because they were Jews. They also persecuted and murdered millions of others, Europeans, including Roma and Sinti Gypsies, persons with mental and physical disabilities, Slavs and other minorities, Christians, Jehovah's Witnesses, gays, and political dissidents. Let us continue to come together to remember all the innocent lives lost in the Holocaust, pay tribute to those intrepid individuals who resisted the Nazis in the Warsaw Ghetto, and recall those selfless heroes who risked their lives in order to help or save those of their persecuted neighbors. Their bravery inspires us to embrace all that is good about hope and resilience. Their altruism reminds us of the importance of maintaining peace and unity, and of our civic duty never to remain silent or indifferent in the face of evil. We have a responsibility to convey the lessons of the Holocaust to future generations, and together as Americans, we have a moral obligation to combat anti-Semitism, confront hate, and prevent genocide. We must ensure that the history of the Holocaust remains forever relevant and that no people suffer these tragedies ever again. Now therefore I, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States of America, do hereby ask the people of the United States to observe the days of remembrance of victims of the Holocaust, April 12th through April 19th, 2018.
And the solemn anniversary of the liberation of Nazi death camps, with appropriate study, prayers, and commemoration, and to honor the memory of the victims of the Holocaust and Nazi persecution by internalizing the lessons of this atrocity so that it is never repeated. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand this 11th day of April, in the year of our Lord 2018, and of the independence of the United States of America, 242nd. Donald J. Trump.
Yes. Okay. I knew I was trying not to cry during it, but here I am. Anyway. You know what? I think tears are appropriate. What can I say? Okay. Also, Vice President Mike Pence also tweeted out a tweet about it. Do you have that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you want to put that up? Because I'm trying to find it. Really, Tuggy Bear? He doesn't like our showtime. Okay, let's find the tweet. I'm trying to find what I sent you so I could...
Well, it's up.
Yeah.
Want me to just read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
During these days of remembrance of victims of the Holocaust, we remember and honor the 6 million Jews, including 1.5 million children, who were killed during one of the darkest periods in history. We must never forget the atrocities of the Holocaust, and must ensure never again.
Yeah. So those are two important people who have said something. And then I also sent Randall a video that was tweeted out. And I think it's important to watch this too. I think this is about a 2-minute video. So while you're getting that up, Randall, I will also let you know that there today was a poll that was put out by timesofisrael.com titled, "Most Americans Believe the Holocaust Could Happen Again." Nearly half are unable to name a single ghetto or concentration camp, and 4 in 10 are unsure of what Auschwitz was. And I'll just read this way, and then let me know when you're ready.
Anytime.
Okay. Most Americans, 58%, believe the Holocaust could happen again, and half think it could happen in the United States. A survey released on Holocaust Remembrance Day showed. Just over 2/3, 68%, thought that anti-Semitism was present in the U.S. Half believed there were many neo-Nazis in the country. And most people thought it was important to continue teaching about the Holocaust and that it should be compulsory in schools. The study commissioned by the Conference on Jewish Material Claims Against Germany revealed considerable ignorance about the World War II genocide of the Jews. Out of 1,350 American adults aged 18 and over who were questioned, 45% were unable to name a single concentration camp or ghetto, and 41% were not sure what Auschwitz was. There were over 40,000 concentration camps and ghettos in Europe during the Holocaust, according to researchers at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. Nearly all respondents had heard of the Holocaust, 89%, believed that it really happened, 96%, and knew that Adolf Hitler and the Nazis were responsible for it. But just half knew that 6 million Jews perished during the Holocaust, with a third guessing the toll was 2 million or less. More respondents were familiar with Anne Frank, 85%, the Dutch teenager who kept a diary while hiding from the Nazis in Amsterdam, than with the names of the most senior Nazis, bar Hitler himself, propaganda chief Joseph Goebbels, 46%, Heinrich Himmler, whom Hitler charged with the final solution to eradicate the Jews, 53%, and Adolf Eichmann, who oversaw the mass deportation of Jews to ghettos and death camps, 45%. 6 in 10 of those asked didn't know of any Holocaust survivors, and 4 in 10 had never visited a Holocaust museum and didn't know anyone who had. The survey task force was led by the Claims Conference Board and included Holocaust survivors as well as representatives from museums, educational institutions, and leading nonprofits in the field of Holocaust education, such as Yad Vashem, the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, the American Jewish Committee, the Jewish Agency, and George Washington University. We are alarmed that today's generation lacks some of the basic knowledge about these atrocities, said Claims Conference President Julius Berman. Greg Schneider, Claims Conference Executive Vice President, said, "There remain troubling gaps in Holocaust awareness while survivors are still with us. Imagine when there are no longer survivors here to tell their stories. We must be committed to ensuring the horrors of the Holocaust and the memory of those who suffered so greatly are remembered." Okay. Told and taught by future generations. One of the, and then it was, then it says, one of the representative sample of respondents, 37% had a college degree or more. The margin of error was 3%, so that's within the margin of error. But our young people basically don't know. And your colleges aren't going to talk about it the way that it happened, because most of them are left-leaning. But I also shared another article in my email titled Yad Sarah Races Against Time to Record Stories of Survivors. And so what they've done is they have recorded 1,000 stories of survivors to date. So either all these people are independently making it up or they're colluding with somebody, but it can't be. And then earlier today, over in Poland, they actually streamed this live on the internet. There was called the March of the Living, where over 12,000 people marched in that to remember.
Yeah, and if I can just kind of emphasize the importance of that, of never again, and the importance of remembering. You talked about young people not being familiar. I was reading earlier on myjewishlearning.com how in the early 1950s, the education system there in Israel emphasized how those were the millions that were slaughtered by the Jews, but more emphasized the passive resistance that they had while maintaining dignity. And studies conducted in the late 1950s. Okay, the nation of Israel established in 1948, right? Early 1950s, they're teaching about the Holocaust, but with an emphasis on the passive resistance. By the late 1950s, surveys conducted indicated that young people had no respect for the victims of the Holocaust, thinking they were just like sheep led to the slaughter. And now keep in mind, 1948, from the day even prior to that Israel was declared a nation, they faced opposition and had to fight for their existence, are still fighting for their existence. And so by the late 1950s, we're talking, within a decade of, the actual events, young people didn't have respect. Well, they didn't resist, because their parents, immediate parents, and their experience, I believe, of Israel's founding was one of armed resistance. So later on, the education system did emphasize, like you talked about, the armed uprising in the Warsaw Ghetto and others, that it wasn't just a passive resistance, but many forces come alongside. I mean, be they Dietrich Bonhoeffer or others.
Well, that's why I wanted you to show that video.
Yeah.
Because in it, the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, he's talking about, I think there's 36 heroes that they highlighted on this particular memorial wall that actually helped those who did escape. And look, I'm just going to say this. Look, if I actually have Jewish blood, which apparently I do, I still don't know anything about my mom's side of the family, with the exception of the fact that I don't know anything actually. But apparently, according to this DNA test that I got, 7 generations back, I had a full-blooded grandmother. My mom was born in 1944, which means her mom was born in probably the 20s, which means that somewhere in this time frame, they were around during World War II. That my ancestors and yours were too, most likely. So what I know is that even though there's commingling among the Gentiles and Jews, apparently, somewhere in my history, personally, somebody must have escaped, because I'm from the Europe. I mean, we're all from the European things. Anyway, this webinar I was on this morning, the rabbi actually listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just 5 miracles of Israel. I just want to share this with you really fast, okay? So number 1, Ezekiel 34:13. I'm not going to look it up, but you can write it down, look it up later. It predicts the ingathering of the nations, okay? So, in other words, people who, the Jews are going back to their land, basically. And by the way, next week is the 70th anniversary. It's going to be a big week next week in Israel. We're going to cover it. In fact, I got a guy I'm going to try to get on, who is an expert in this. But in Nehemiah 13:24, it talks about the revitalization of the Hebrew language. Now think about this, you guys. This is a miracle of the Word of God and Hebrew. Because think about it, there's all these other languages throughout history that have been extinct, and yet somehow God brought back Hebrew miraculously. It's a miracle. Isaiah 51:3 talks about the desert is blooming. And I just learned this today. Did you know that it was a Jew who figured out irrigation? Did you know that? Now, Israel, if you've never been there, I can tell you, it looks like California. California is a desert. Israel is a desert, but it's blooming. And I think in part because of the irrigation that's there. Also, in Ezra 6:14, spiritual partnership with nations. And if you know anything about the Balfour Declaration, then we see that throughout history. And then, and this is the biggest one, I think, Isaiah 49:22 talks about the unity between Jews and non-Jews. And that's actually happening today. I mentioned this book earlier at the top of the show. This is about the anti-Semitism in the church. And frankly, it's still growing today. But there's also a lot of unity between Jews and Gentiles today, which didn't used to be for a very long time. Okay, so go ahead. You can play that, the video.
Okay. Hold on, we don't have any audio. Hold that thought. I'm gonna guess it's one of these. One of these will work.
To those of you who are listening to the podcast, you'll have to go watch the video on
6 million
Twitter.
of our brothers and sisters were slaughtered in the worst atrocity in history. This plaque recognizes these brave diplomats who acted by the dictates of their conscience without regard for personal and professional consequence. These people lit candles of truth and candles of humanity in this sea of darkness. And this is what makes the people who are honored here so exceptional. They are lesser known heroes. They're all on this wall. And they should be known. We should teach our people, I think all of humanity, their courage and example. Diplomats like Captain Francis Foley of the United Kingdom and Hovek Shan of China and the others, they deserve to be household names.
לכל דיפלומט ולכל מדינה יש כמה רגעים בקריירה שאתה יודע שזה לוקח אותך הרבה יותר מעבר להגדרה המאוד מאוד רלוונטית שאתה מקבל ביציאה שלך לחוץ לארץ. וזה כאשר אתה נכנס לתוך עולם של משברים, לעולם של קשיים, שבו אתה יודע שאולי לך, יותר מכל אחד אחר, יש את הסיכוי לעשות את השינוי. והיכולת שלך לעשות את השינוי ולייצר שינוי בחייהם של אנשים, זאת מתנה מאוד.
Yeah, it kind of abruptly ends there. But, the point is that, we have to remember. And the other point is that there were brave people who were there. And I think I'm gonna read one other thing here. I posted this earlier. Messianic Rabbi Greg Hirschberg tweeted this out earlier today. He wrote, "Today is a sad day, Holocaust remembrance. I remember a saying found on a wall of a concentration camp. I believe in the sun even when it's not shining. I believe in love when I feel it not. I believe in God even when he is silent. That is faith." And yet I have to tell you that God isn't silent. It might seem like he is. He's watching over this. And if this doesn't tell you the deep hatred of the devil towards the Jews and Christ himself, I don't know what will. We talk about the Holocaust of the unborn. Do you think that's a mistake? I do. I think it's a huge mistake to kill unborn babies, preborn babies. But to try to wipe out, in particular, God's chosen people, the devil is clearly behind it. And you know what? He's still doing it. And this is why it's important, because all throughout history, the Jews have been persecuted because the devil knows that Yeshua ultimately is going to reign forever. And those of us who accept him will have eternal life, and the devil will lose the soul of that person who he fought really hard to give. And so I just have to say, it's interesting to me because if you want to look at it this way, the persecution of the Jews is evidence that God exists. Because if he didn't exist, it probably wouldn't happen that way. It'd be some other, God chose the Jews for the very sad fact that he chose the Jews. He could have chose anybody, but he chose the Jews. And so, we can't be cavalier about it. And I'm going to tell you something. I was reading Twitter earlier. All you guys have to do is go over to Twitter and put in the hashtag Holocaust Remembrance Day. You'll see the anti-Semitism. Because Randall walked in the room. He's like, "You look a little bit disgusted." I said, "Yeah." And then I read him some of the tweets that I was reading. It's just crazy. And yet, if you look at the spiritual thing, that's what this show's about, hopefully. You have to understand that the first time, during, before Christ came, and then after he was born, people tried to kill him. He laid down his life for us, and now he's going to come back a second time. But all these things still have to happen, and so the devil's still after the Jews because the devil knows his time is getting close. And in fact, when I was on the call this morning with the Israel 365 ministry that produced the New Israel Bible, there was a guy, David Parson, who is the senior, he's the vice president and the senior international spokesman for the International Christian Embassy of Jerusalem. That was a mouthful. And he said that there's two types of pro-Israel Christians. There's the Zionists, which, believe it or not, you'll hear that as a derogatory comment, which it's not. He said those are the people who believe in the prophetic. That would be me, by the way. But then he also said that there are the pro-Israel Christians who are those who are devotional in approach. That would be me also, because I want to understand the scripture in the context in which it's written, which is why I am very thankful Ariel Ministries is our sponsor. How'd you like that segue? It was good, wasn't it? Anyway, you can go to ariel.org anytime, day or night, and anything on that website you can buy and save 20% when you use the coupon code Bible News. Also, you can go over to BibleNewsRadio.com and look on our resource pages, and we have specific items up there that you might want to check out. Model Ballaston, who's a Messianic Bible teacher, a number of his teachings are up there. And of course, we're talking a lot about the Maps of Israel book that you can also get. There's some really steep discounts on those. So I would really encourage you to check it out. And also the history of Zionism in the state of Israel. If you want to learn about this stuff, that would be a good one to get. Just saying, you guys. And also the free Bible teaching this month is the Resurrection of the Messiah, which Randall's put back up there on the thingy there. On the thingy. And I would check that out too. Just download it. Just click the link. It'll download automatically. And if you haven't joined our email list yet, please do that. Also, if you want to donate, become a partner with us. You can become a pillar of the community and donate there on our website also, BibleNewsRadio.com/give. And I hope you do. I really do, because we appreciate the support. In fact, I got a new donor last night, and you know who you are, and I want to thank you for the donation you gave us, because every cent is needed. I think I got everything right. Which also, I want to bring up this too. Starting this Saturday, I haven't picked a time yet, but I'll probably announce it in my email. This Saturday, I'm going to start offering some books for sale. I have a lot of books. You guys, sometimes I get sent 10 books a week. Seriously, brand new books. I don't have time to interview all the authors and stuff, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a book sale. What we're going to do is I'm just going to show you what the books are, and then you can say, yeah, I want that. No, I don't want it. I'm going to offer a $5 shipping rate for 3 books, because that may cover it. It will probably be a little bit more than that, because shipping books, even media mail today, is quite expensive. But we'll be offering the books at low cost. I mean, you're going to get brand new books for very low prices. So I want you to be a part of that. Just, pay attention to my social media. I'm going to do it on Periscope. And I may do it on Instagram as well. I'm not sure yet. I haven't quite decided yet. But we need to raise some money so that we can pay our taxes and bills. And this is the best way I think I can do it. So you guys will get some good deals if you want to do that. Okay. I want to read one more article, Randall, and then we'll go to the interview that we did at NRB.
Okay.
This article over here is on the Israel National News website. And this talks about Trump's peace plan being nearly complete. Now, this is interesting to me. It says here, Trump administration has nearly completed the Israel PA peace plan. It will not include commitment to a 2-state solution. That's good news, just so you know. Okay. The Trump administration has nearly completed its Israeli-Palestinian Authority peace plan, but is still struggling to decide how and when to roll it out, a senior White House official told Reuters on Wednesday. The initiative, which had been widely expected to be released earlier this year, now looks likely to remain on the shelf until its chief architects, President Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and Middle East envoy Jason Greenblatt finalize the details and determine the time is right to unveil it. While offering few specifics for the plan, the official confirmed to Reuters it would not contain a U.S. commitment to a 2-state solution, as the PA had demanded. It will instead stick to Trump's assertion that he will accept whatever the two sides agree. The chill between the White House and the PA has affected the peace effort, the official acknowledged, speaking on condition of anonymity. Okay, I'm not going to read anymore because I don't want to take up more time. We'll talk about this more, though, because here's the deal, and why this is so important to understand and to know is that this has to do, throughout history, the Middle East peace that everybody's trying to get centers around Israel and Israel's land. The Palestinian Authority somehow believe that they have a right to God's land. They don't. Previous American administrations have said, oh yeah, why don't we do a two-state solution, blah, blah. Israel will give up her land to give it to the Palestinians, and that will bring us peace. Problem is that hasn't happened. And it's never going to happen. At least I hope it doesn't ever happen.
Yeah, it's only brought more violence.
It's brought, and if you want to talk about anti-Semitism, the Palestinians, the Muslims, they're the biggest anti-Semites of all. And let me also say this. I am not disregarding the Palestinian Christians because there are plenty of Arab Christians out there. And we have to be very careful to remember that, not all Palestinians are trying to kill Jews. Because a number of them are believers in Yeshua, and we have to pray for them and their protection because they're being targeted, especially during the holy days of Israel. And by the way, the U.S. Embassy is also going to be moved to Jerusalem very soon, and you can darn well bet there's going to be a whole bunch of violence around that time as well. So, anyway, I just have to say that it's interesting to watch what's going on in the Middle East. If you don't have any idea about what's going on in the Middle East and why it's so important, well, hopefully the show will help a little bit. Not that I'm an expert, but it's important that we know that, right, Randall?
Indeed.
All right.
Indeed.
Okay. Poor Tuggy Bear. He hates the showtime. We're doing the showtime during Tug's feeding time. He does not like it.
Well, come November, when we fall back to standard time.
Oh, we got a dog that likes to be demanding. Anyway, okay, so a couple of weeks back, we went to the National Religious Broadcasters Convention, and we did like 30 interviews. We're finally covering them. We're getting down to some of the last interviews. So today what we're going to do is we're going to air an interview that we did with Catherine Lopp. I think that's how you say it.
Or Yop.
I'm not really sure how to say it. But anyway, she wrote a book called Undeniable God. And the description is, what if I told you that you are not called to a mundane, ordinary life? What if I told you life was not meant to be void of true meaning? Through her incredibly transparent and challenging story of addictions, incarceration, and more, Catherine Lopp, or Yop, will show you how even when life seems to be caving in all around you, there is still one truth. One answer, one undeniable God. Everyone has a story. We are all on a journey to find fulfillment in life and truth. Don't let a rough chapter in your life be your final chapter. Your God, my God, isn't finished with you yet. So here is that interview. It's about, 10 minutes or so?
Yeah.
Okay, so enjoy the interview. Hey everybody, welcome back to NRB exclusive interviews here at Proclaim 18, people. And don't forget, pray for 18 as well. That's our hashtag. Anyway, so here we are doing another interview, and we're coming live from Nashville. I almost forgot where I was, people. And I have a new author here, the author of Undeniable God, Catherine Lopp, or Yop, depending on where you're at in the world, is our guest. And anyway, Catherine, you're here. This is your book.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for coming on my show.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad you're here.
Thank
all right,
you.
So first of all, you guys, we always talk about being bold, standing up and going with God because he loves you. Catherine was bold and asked for an interview. So I thought, what the heck, So is this your first NRB convention?
Yes, ma'am.
It is?
It is.
Yeah. Do you live here?
I live in Atlanta.
Oh, not very far. Right?
Not far. No.
Good. How long did it take you to get here?
3.5 hours.
Wow. You drove for 3.5 hours?
I sure did.
All right. Are you familiar with the Love Lady Center?
The Love Lady Center, I'm not.
No? Okay, I was just curious. That was just
Just a side note.
Yeah.
Side thought.
Yeah. Okay. So you wrote a book called Undeniably God, and this is your story, right?
Yes.
Okay. You want to tell me your story? I know you're Jewish.
Yes, we did find out I have Sephardic Jewish ancestry, but I was raised Catholic, as you'll read in the book. My book is about how I came to my undeniable faith in God. I came from a very broken background, a broken home. My mother left when I was little, and I lived a life full of a lot of deception and lies, and I went looking for fulfillment and truth in all of the wrong places, and I went through drug addictions and incarcerations. I almost went to prison, and through all of that, God showed up so many times in undeniable ways, where I got to a point in my life where I just said, I can't keep this to myself anymore. I was just looking for fulfillment and truth, and I found the truth in Jesus, and I wasn't even looking for him.
Aww.
And so...
so tell me one story, like how God showed up. Okay, so you were incarcerated for...
Yeah, I'll tell you. So I was arrested a few times on drug charges, and on one arrest I was arrested and I spent 9 months in jail.
Wow.
And I had to sit in jail to wait on a court date. And I was being told by the prosecutor that they were going to send me to prison for 8 years and 4 to serve in prison.
What was it for drug?
It was for possession of methamphetamine with intent to distribute.
Okay, so you were going to sell it.
So, right.
Make money.
I was doing it and selling it.
Gotcha.
And I waited in jail for 9 months to go to court. And during those 9 months, I prayed and prayed and prayed. And I was just a baby at this stuff. All I knew was I was at rock bottom. And the only way I had to look was up. And I didn't have a full understanding of the Bible or Jesus and exactly what he was. But I always knew there was a God during all of this. And I prayed and I fasted and I prayed and I prayed for 9 months. And I went into court with my attorney, and he looked at me because I told my attorney I wanted to ask to be released on First Offenders Act probation and not go to prison. And so we weren't making a deal with the state, which can be really dangerous because you're leaving it in the judge's hands.
Yeah.
And so I go into the courtroom after 9 months of waiting and praying, and he looked at me, and my attorney goes, "Why are you so sure you might get First Offenders Act? Because the state is asking to send you to prison." And I said, "I've been praying for 9 months. I'm just going to stand on it." And I just had this glimmer of hope. I don't know where it came from. And I went into the courtroom. The prosecutor stood up, read my name, my charges, that they wanted to send me to prison for 8 years with 4 to serve there.
Wow.
And my attorney asked for First Offenders Act. And I was released to go home on First Offenders Act. And the chapter in that book is actually called Miracle in the Courtroom. It was a major miracle in my life because nothing like that had ever been done in the county that I was convicted in.
Very cool.
So
that's cool.
Yeah.
I can see you're kind of emotional.
yeah, it was a very big thing for my relationship with the Lord. He was very undeniable that day.
Very cool. So you've, I love stories of power, don't you, people? You do, don't you? That's why Catherine's on our show, to encourage you. Do you have a website or anything where people can get your book at?
Yes, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it at Serta Publishing's website, sertapublishing.com, and you can get it at catherinelopp.com.
Okay, and what else do you do? I know you're, what it says here, you're a writer, worship dancer, leader.
Yes.
And member of Beth Hallel in Atlanta.
Yes, I am a member of Beth Hallel, which is a Messianic synagogue, and we have a Davidic dance team that I'm the director of, and I've been doing that for a few years. I love it. I'm very much a worshiper. My worship comes from a very deep part of me, just from what I've overcome and been delivered from, and so.
I'm curious, because I'm, part Jewish, obviously.
Of course you are.
They went on the journey with me, my audience.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. I love that.
Because here's the story. So basically, last year I had a Messianic rabbi tell me I was Jewish, and I was like, no, I'm not. What do you mean? And then all these other people started telling me I'm Jewish out of the blue. Long story short, I find out through 23andMe, like you did. And but I don't dance. So
Okay.
you got the dance gene. I didn't.
I do. I love to dance. I love Israeli folk dance and Davidic dance.
Okay, so how did you get involved in a Messianic congregation? Because that's something that most Christians don't get involved in.
Right. You know, I was actually, and I talk about it in my book also, raised in a Catholic church.
Yeah.
So there was just no understanding, no connection there. But what happened was after my deliverance, I started reading the Bible. Which the Bible, and I talk about this in my book as well, how the Bible confirms so many experiences of my life. I experienced Jesus before I even really read about him and knew what he came to do. And I was like, oh, this Jesus guy really is who he says he is, because I experienced him before I even read these things about him. And so when I started to read the Bible, I was visiting churches, and I enjoyed teachings there, but I started gravitating towards teachings of Messianic rabbis. Like there's Rabbi Schneider. Do you know who he is with Discovering the Jewish Jesus? I caught his show as much as I could. And just the teachings of the feasts, and there's our faith is so rich. The roots are so rich to our faith, and observing things like Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah and Passover, that these things point directly to Jesus. And so I found that the house I bought was actually 10 minutes down the road from Beth Hillel. I had no idea when I bought my house. I just drove by it one day and saw it, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me, Lord. I also talk about that in my book. But so I started going there, and those things just really feed my spirit, being able to observe the high holy days and things like that. So,
are you familiar with Ariel Ministries?
Ariel Ministries?
It's the ministry of Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum.
No, I am not.
Just in case you aren't, they're our sponsor, people, just so you know. Ariel, if you go to ariel.org, save 20% when you use the coupon code Bible News. You should check out their stuff. It's really, really good.
Great, I will.
Yeah. Awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
See, I met another Jewish sister. See, people, God knows what he's doing.
Our blood's speaking to each other right now.
That's good. So is this your first time at NRB?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you liking it?
I love it.
Isn't it cool?
It's been great. It's been really great.
What's the coolest thing about it?
The coolest thing, really, honestly, I was just telling someone down at the expo floor, there's a really great energy. When you just put so many believers together in the same place, it is just so much life. I just love the energy around this place. It's amazing.
It's safe.
Very.
What's interesting is, how you feel the presence of God. Sometimes you can just feel like he's there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, hi.
Right.
I've a couple different people I've interviewed. I can just feel God's presence.
Absolutely.
It's totally cool.
It's very cool.
You know what? Bible News Radio was born at NRB in 2005.
Really?
Yeah, pretty much.
Beautiful.
They weren't called that back then, but anyway, I'm so happy I got to meet you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So hold up your book and point to it and tell people to buy it.
Yes, this is Undeniable God. It is a story of coming out of darkness and God always being there in undeniable ways. And you can get it again on Amazon, certapublishing.com or catherinelopp.com.
Yay!
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so isn't that cool? Now, I have to tell you, I interviewed 30 different people, give or take, at NRB. Catherine was one of the last ones on my list, and I was like, I asked her, and I'm like, who is it? Who is that woman? Catherine, if you're watching this after the fact, don't be offended by that, because I interviewed like 30 people. Anyway, long story short, I had not listened to that interview until just now, so I think it's super cool that on Holocaust Remembrance Day, I got to show you an interview I did with a Messianic Jewish believer. How cool is that? Isn't that cool, Bareface? I think it's cool.
Oh, that's definitely cool. Way cool.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we got about 5 or 6 minutes left, so...
Depends if we're going for the hour or we're going for the 55 minutes.
Well, how much time do we have then?
Well, if we're going for 5 minutes, well, we're going to be late, so...
Okay.
Better go for the hour.
All right, well, I want to read you some other tweets. This is from Brigitte Gabriel, who is with ACT. She's Jewish. She tweeted out, in 2017, anti-Semitic hate crimes in the United States went up 57% from the previous year. The hate must stop. We must never forget what happened decades ago to millions of innocent Jewish people. It all started with mainstreamed anti-Semitism. Alex Morash, who I don't know who he is, he writes, Nazi death camps murdered 6 million Jews, 1.8 million Polish civilians, 7 million Soviet civilians, 250,000 disabled Europeans, 220,000 gypsies, tens of thousands of, quote, accused, unquote, homosexuals, and countless more. Today we remember and say never again. And then, let's see here. There's a number. Oh, well, and then I'll read you an anti-Semite, okay? I'm going to read you this one. Pardon my language. This is what Mike Enoch.
Well, can you substitute?
I will. Mike Enoch's back. He writes, no one gives a S about, quote, the Holocaust, unquote, anymore. Lurid propaganda and obvious guilt tripping just pees people off now. And I'm going to tell you something. As of the time of this recording, he's got 592 people that like that comment, 136 have retweeted it, and 47 people have responded to it. A number have responded favorably, and a number have responded appropriately by saying he is wrong. Let's see here. Michael Dixon writes, Israel does not exist because of the Holocaust, but had Israel been reborn earlier, there would not have been a Holocaust. And there's one about a moment of silence. Fox News research put estimated 687,000 Holocaust survivors worldwide. About 100,000 live in the United States. Awareness of U.S. adults survey says 11% never heard, not sure they've ever heard about the Holocaust. Survey 41% say 2/3 of millennials do not know about Auschwitz. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. I don't mean to.
You say Auschwitz. Auschwitz.
Okay.
If you want to be German about it, but
I'm not German, but I am Jewish. Important. Okay, there was another one that said, I'm trying to find it because there's a lot of them. Oh wait, I know, I retweeted it. Let me look on my Twitter account because this was sobering. Okay.
Radio silence.
Yeah, here it is. Scott Volk said, if we held a moment of silence for every victim of the Holocaust, you would not hear a sound for 11.5 years. Think about that one. That's pretty powerful, I think. Yeah, so there's a lot more I'm sure I could say, but I think you guys got the point. You guys have any comments or questions here at the very end? Maybe I can take a couple of those if you do. Randall, you have any comments or questions? Thoughts?
Comments, we've got about 40 seconds.
Okay, we have about 40 seconds. Okay, well, here's what I want to encourage you guys to do. Number one, I want you to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Psalm 122 verse 6 talks about that. You can go read Psalm 122 and in context and read that, but pray for the peace of Jerusalem. I would also ask you to pray for the survivors, the living Holocaust survivors that are still around. When Randall and I went to Israel, we actually got to hear husband and wife Holocaust survivors testify. They were both in separate camps and they found each other. They got married. They were elderly, by the way. And also just pray, for the peace of Jerusalem. I already said that, I know. But don't forget the Jewish roots of your faith if you're a believer. And if you're Jewish, let me encourage you to check out the New Testament and see how Jewish it is, because it really is. All right, so be bold, people. Stand up, go with God, because he loves you. Tomorrow we will be back with another show. And I just want to say thank you again for all of those of you who support us by coming in with your prayers and your donations. We really appreciate it. Go over to BibleNewsRadio.com, join our email list, and we will see you tomorrow.